All right. I wanted to do a video on Tim Truman, a guy who's surprisingly done a lot of work in comics, and yet, for some weird reason, is not a household name, at least to my knowledge. Um, Absolutely one of the, probably one of the best artists right now. Maybe the best artist. I know that's probably a real stretch when you talk about great artists. But man, he is up there. Went to the Kubert School and had an amazing career. And man, when he came out of the Kubert School, which you're going to see in this book, I mean, his stuff was looking like a professional was doing it. And he was going to the Kubert School. You go, man, did he even need to go to the Kubert School? I'm sure he did because he probably learned a lot from Joe Kubert himself. I mean, if you can learn under Joe Kubert, I mean, that's pretty impressive. I wish that I could have learned under him, but of course, I was too young at the time, and I think by the time I was old enough to go to the Kubert School, he probably wasn't working there anymore. He may even have passed away at that point. But I want to take a look at Tim Truman's artwork, because, man, when you're feeling like you're not inspired to work, you have to, inspired to draw. You just don't feel it. You don't feel like you want to draw today. You're just like, man, I'm just not feeling it. Everything I draw looks like shit. You got to look at guys like Tim Truman to hopefully make you feel better about drawing. And I'm kind of working on right now, kind of like, I want to have like a top 10 artists that I'm inspired by, and maybe do 5 comic book artists and maybe 5 fine artists, and kind of get my style based upon that. But it's very tough, because there's so many great artists. But I think Tim Truman might be up there might be up there in my top 5 favorite comic book artists I kind of want to learn from. Tim Truman, of course, did a lot of mainstream work. He did some Sergeant Rock. Surprisingly, I was looking at his work. So I don't know if he brought it back, after, maybe Kubert probably asked him, hey, you want to, or maybe DC said, hey, you have this style that's kind of, I mean, it's not, I don't know. There's some Kubert-like qualities about it, but then there's kind of not. He did some Conan work. He did a comic book called Scout for a couple of years. He did, what was it, Grimjack, I think was the other comic that he did. He did a bunch of mainstream work. And for some weird reason, he's just kind of not talked about. So I kind of wanted to flip through this book really quick. I would advise to go out and buy this, especially if you're not feeling inspired about your artwork, or you're trying to find an artist that, you can really look at. Because I struggled with it. I struggled with, well, there's so many comic book artists that look very similar to one another. How many times am I going to look at a guy who's just trying to do Neil Adams or Jack Kirby over and over again? I want to look at an artist who sort of does kind of things differently, kind of does things in his own way. I mean, of course, you can definitely tell that he was inspired by guys like Joe Kubert. A lot of Mobius. You can definitely tell Mobius is definitely in there, especially in the early work, like, pieces like this. You can definitely tell, and there's some Bernie Wrightson even. You can definitely tell where his inspirations are, but he kind of went off and eventually became his own artist. So I'm just going to kind of do a quick flip through. I definitely think you should go and pick this book up. The quality, I mean, it's a high quality book. It's on glossy paper, which I'm not, a big fan of when you're looking at art books, but it works. It definitely is high quality. I mean, the pages are nice and thick, and the artwork looks amazing, and it's good in size that you don't feel like you're ripped off. So, I mean, when you flip through this, you kind of see all different kinds of styles of work. I mean, here's some marker pieces, some pieces with marker, and then you have some ink wash stuff, and then you have some digital stuff. I'm not a big fan of the digital stuff. He does have the ability to sort of kind of make his digital stuff look traditional. Like for instance this. The other thing is you have pieces that are broken down. And you kind of get to see, this change from kind of this, which by the way looks amazing. I think any artist, if you could draw like this, you're pretty much set in stone. Just kind of stuff like this, you know. And I do like that it shows maybe, before the color was put on, or before, the detail or not detail, but before the shadows and then obviously the color was put on. Absolutely amazing. This page, unbelievable. And I mean, I know you're probably thinking to yourself, man, does my artwork supposed to look like that, from, the planning stage to the end point? And is it supposed to look that tight? No, it's not supposed to. I think he's just kind of, how many, drawings did you do before this? Probably loads. But you kind of get this finished piece. And one thing that I love about Tim Truman is he can draw these amazing organic shapes and these organic things like the human body, for instance, and then he can draw these very mechanical, in amazing perspective drawings. And right now, I'm kind of working on my perspective because perspective, I think, is something that you always need to work on as an artist. You have to continue to practice 1 point, 2 point, 3 point perspective. I mean, this is a guy who is a master. I mean, it's just all perfectly placed, perfectly mirrored. Great work. I mean, this is done with graphite, and then it's digitally painted, on the back. But I mean, it looks very traditional, or it looks very digital, but it's not. I'm assuming this is traditional ink wash, graphite, and then he digitally painted it. Absolutely amazing how much this guy kind of progressed. I actually think that in some cases I prefer, and he probably would disagree, but I prefer this over this. I don't know why, but I just do. And man, his drapery is amazing. I mean, the way he draws the clothed figure. I mean, everything this guy does is amazing, but and there's like kind of the one thing I will say about his artwork is you can definitely tell that either he inspired Steve Dillon or they were kind of drawing very similar because there's some Steve Dillon in his proportions, but I think it's more of it might be that there's some Tim Truman and Steve Dillon's proportions. And then we get on to game art. I actually love this chapter the most. I mean, look at that anatomy. Look at that bicep. Look at that tricep. Look at those forearm muscles. I mean, it's so solid. That deltoid, that pec. I mean, it's so solid. It looks absolutely amazing. 1982. I mean, this stuff done with gouache. Absolutely amazing piece. If I could sit down and draw something even half as good as this, and paint and draw and paint something as half as good as this, I would be, man. I'd go to sleep very, very happy at night. The other thing I love about this chapter is so much ink wash. This is the kind of stuff that, and I love that's in the middle of the book because this is the stuff you want to see. Also, you could definitely see if you look at a piece like, let's go back here. By the way, I skipped this page. Absolutely amazing scout cover. A man who could definitely, reinvent himself for the times, for sure. But there's a Conan piece in here I want to take, by the way. Absolutely striking piece. Amazing. But there's a Conan piece in here. Or no, I'm sorry, it's a Tarzan? Whatever it is. It might, I don't know what it is, but I mean, you can definitely see Kubert in that work. That the anatomy is very Kubert-like. So you can definitely tell that he was inspired and learned under Kubert. But we kind of go forward. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that you would see in your Dungeons and Dragons books. I love this page. I absolutely adore this page. This is probably my favorite page in the book. Just, I mean, look at that art. I mean, you're getting all kinds of different body types, all different kinds of different gestures. I mean, I guess you're not getting different body types. The body types are actually very similar, but you're getting different gestures. It's very organic feeling. It doesn't feel stiff. Absolutely amazing work. That ink wash, unbelievable. I mean, look at that piece, man. I wonder if these are scans directly from the originals or what. Very thick pages, by the way. Absolutely amazing work. I'm just kind of going through this very quickly. Because I do think that people should go and pick this book up. Not a single person that I've seen, I could be wrong, but I've not seen a single person on YouTube cover this book. And I really think that this guy and this book should be covered. Absolutely amazing artwork. I mean, I love that piece. I love that piece. I love this entire page. Entire page is amazing. Man, the detail and the anatomy and the drapery and just everything. Just absolutely spot on. Odin the Wanderer. I'm guessing this is like a book, like a novel with drawings in it. Very, very cool. Love that piece. Some Beowulf stuff. I mean, look at that. Look how striking that piece is. Man. I know I'm flipping through it rather quickly, but here's some historical stuff. Kind of a chapter that I'm like, meh, don't really care. There's some striking pieces, but there's nothing in here that kind of makes you go, nuts. I hate this piece. Absolutely hate this piece. It's too digital. It does not, it looks, no, I'm not a big fan of that. And he's got some noir stuff. I love noir stuff because you use a lot of, you're manipulating light, using a lot of negative space, which is great if you have a guy like Tim Truman who can really work with ink wash, stuff like that. Rock and roll art, not really into this either. It's actually quite a hefty thing, but, if you're into this, like posters for, festivals and stuff like that, very, not up my alley, but it's, it's great art. Don't get me wrong, it's great art, just not what I'm opening up an art book for. And then you got some Robert E. Howard stuff. You got some Solomon Kane and obviously Conan the Barbarian stuff. I love his Conan work. It reminds me of, like, I wouldn't say it reminds me of Frazetta, but it's definitely, I mean, when you're doing Conan, you have to understand how to draw like Frank Frazetta. You have to study Frank Frazetta. You can't get around it, And, absolutely amazing stuff. I love this drawing. This is like if Buscema and Neil Adams fucked each other and had a child. I mean, absolutely amazing artwork. I love this piece. Because it's kind of like he's doing Conan his own way, And then he's sort of kind of doing it the way that Buscema and Neil Adams and those guys would do it. So I like people who can take Conan and kind of take the character on for themselves, but also kind of, respect the original material. Solomon Kane, a guy who I don't think has gotten a very, very good rap in comics for whatever reason, or maybe he has and I just haven't read it. I don't know. More Conan stuff, absolutely amazing. I mean, you got to know how to draw anatomy. You have to know how to draw anatomy if you're going to do Conan, and he knows it. All right, so we got some comic work. Absolutely amazing drawing of Grimjack. Meh, not a big fan of that digital feel to it. I don't know. Sometimes it feels flat and it looks weird. I don't know. More amazing drawings. Some just covers. This section is a little disappointing. I will be honest. It's a little disappointing. There's some great work in here, but there's a couple disappointing pages. You wish that there was more. You wish that there was like individual pages. I kind of think that that's the thing that's missing from this is like, where are the individual pages? Like, where are the pages of art of comics, And, maybe they didn't want to do that in this book, but, yeah, I absolutely love this amazing piece. I would definitely say get this book if you are kind of feeling like you're not inspired, Tim Truman's a guy who you can look at his artwork and go, Yeah, man, I want to go to the table today. This really makes me itch, to go to the table. I mean, you get all eras. You get like the '80s, you get the '70s, you get modern day. I think there's a little bit more modern day shit in here than. Then again, I mean, just this chapter alone, the game and the game art chapter, one of the coolest chapters in a art book I've seen maybe ever. Especially if you're into like that 1980s, 1990s, like Dungeons and Dragons like art, or Magic the Gathering like art. I mean, this book's definitely got you covered. Huge fan of Tim Truman. Absolutely amazing artist. One of those guys that has done so much work. I mean, a ton of work in comics and commercial art. And yet, for some reason, I don't know why people don't talk about him. I mean, I'm sure there probably are people who do, but I mean, I tried to find a review of this book, and not a single person on YouTube kind of covered it. So I said, why don't I do it? Also, I already bought the book for inspiration, so why not kill two birds with one stone? So I would definitely pick this book up. Absolutely amazing book. If you don't, I mean, you're not gonna like. I don't know. You're not gonna like totally miss out, but I definitely think that this is one of these books that like if you don't pick it up, it's gonna be gone, and then it's gonna be a son of a bitch to get later on. And there are some amazing chapters in here, and there are some chapters that are meh, but um, yeah, I mean Tim Truman's art absolutely amazing. A guy that you want to look at for because all of his forms are solid. His anatomy is almost near perfect. It's stylized kind of in his own way sometimes, but it looks amazing for what it's stylized in his way. Um, yeah, I mean, an amazing artist, a guy that, if you look at his stuff, you're going to be like, oh, okay, you know, let me go sit down and draw for a while. So, yeah, so that's Tim Truman.